Well, hi there, it's Paulie here with Mr. Snoots. Yay! Spring has come. He doesn't need his winter coat anymore. So, board games. There is one board game that I think I've played more than any others. And the reason I've played it more than any others is because of its amazing replayability. And that is, doodly-doodly-doo, Betrayal on House on the Hill. This is the third edition. I've touched on earlier editions. This is the new edition, just out now, which is why I want to have a look at it. So first off, as you can see, boxed game. It's big, it's thorough, it's really well done. Pardon me while I pour from Tinkerbell. So, Betrayal on the House at the Hill is essentially a game of exploring a haunted house. And it's extremely good. It uses an intriguing way of generating scenarios so that you never really play the same game twice. I've been playing this thing for years and I've never had the same scenario turn up twice. So, well done. What you have is a game where you create the house around you. So, first off, we have adventurers. These are represented by miniatures. The new edition has new miniatures, new characters. They're very well sculpted. But these are also represented by character cards. Here is one. The character cards are quite clever in that you see they have these slides on them, which is used for recording values. So if something goes up during the course of the game, you can slide it up. If something goes down, you can slide it down. They're also two-sided, so each miniature and each card can actually represent two different similar-looking characters that have different stats and different abilities. And you are essentially rated for mental and physical abilities. Your physical abilities are might and speed. Might is used in physical attacks, and speed is used for movement, not only just moving on the board, but sometimes it can be for, maneuvering through rooms with ruined floors, getting past traps, that sort of thing. There's also mental characteristics, and that is split into knowledge and sanity, because where would a horror game be without sanity? So, the characters are really quite simple. You are rated values between like 1 and 6 for each of these characteristics, but they don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are different scales depending on the character. However, when it reaches the bottom of any individual characteristic, your character is dead. Death only occurs in the second portion of the game, the haunting portion. It does not occur during the first portion, which is exploration. More on that later. So it's a good simple method of calculating things. The other thing on these is the character's birthday and so on. When starting a game with multiple players, you look at the characters, and the character that has the birthday closest to the current date will be the one that takes first turn. So, a cute little conceit there. So, there are 12 different characters to choose from. Third edition has different characters to those in first and second. This one has probably about 3 older sort of characters and a number of kid characters. So it is allowing you, if you want, to angle a little bit more kids on bikes. Would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those nosy kids, if you want. But, there are characters who are librarians or old priests or paranormal investigators or thrill seekers or what have you. So, just good fun. So the little kids often are obviously low on might, but they might be quite fast, or low on might, but, they're a Poindexter sort and therefore quite cluey. So they're all fun to play. They all are. The other things that this runs on is the house itself. Now, the house is made from cards. So you place down tiles. The game always starts with this one, which is the entryway. It's front door, hall, and it goes up to a set of stairs going up. Each one of these boxes in one movement space, there's a little yellow record in here. In this case, it's just L for a landing site, but there are other icons as well that identify different types of place. The other things that you put out is an upper landing, that's where the stairs exit for an upper floor, and a basement landing, which you can find the basement entrance during the course of play. You will build basement, ground floor, and upper floor as separate groups of tiles that communicate through the landings, that is through those staircases, or they can communicate as you find them through things like secret stairs, dumb elevators, magic wonkavators, this sort of thing. These tiles are split on the back. They've got what region they belong to, ground or basement or upper or ground. Some of them have more than one level that they can be played for. So everyone begins at the front door, and what you do is you have a number of different scenario cards. And that's the difference in these new editions. There was a more complex version in the earlier ones. This one's in some ways smarter. You fan through the scenario cards and have a look and pick them. They might be things like you are paranormal investigators here because something's funny's gone on. Or you might be here for a reading of Uncle Dilbert's will. Or some kid's gone missing, someone thought they saw them dragged into this house, or what have you, different scenarios. These scenario cards, once you've chosen one, it's put aside because this helps determine the haunting, which is the second phase of the game. But once you've determined who goes first, running off the character's birthday, you'll note that there are doors on many of these and they cross-connect. Anything that's got a door on it, you may exit through the door. So your character moves a number of spaces equal to their speed, and you can pass through a door into an adjoining sentence, or if there is no tile here, you can go through the door, in which case you have your deck of tiles face down, you draw a tile, ta-da, and this will show you what's in. What's this one? The salon. These places also have different symbols on them. Each of these means something. Some of these are an item that you can find. Some of these are an action that you can find. And some of them are an omen. Items can be useful. They can be healing potions. They could be an old dagger. They could be, just a mirror. They could be a weapon like a crossbow. Actions will often be things like hauntings and mysterious goings on. Spectral hands reaching from walls, suddenly there's a trap here, a strange voice starts speaking to someone, suddenly someone stares into a mirror and feels themselves being drawn in. Often these require tests against your abilities. There are special dice that come in the game. These essentially are marked with blank faces, and one face has twos and one face has two faces have ones, I think. You roll the dice and you count up the numbers that you get. You roll one dice for each point of a characteristic that you have, and there will be a task difficulty. You've got to make that number on the roll or higher. So if you drew a card that says you feel yourself being drawn into this mirror, suddenly inexplicable force is dragging you in, and it will say something like make a sanity check, and there'll be a table on the card that you will see different results depending on what you got on the sanity check. So it might say if you passed it, it might say you feel dizzy for a moment and wrench free, but somehow your will has been strengthened, +1 to your sanity. Or this thing, if you make a mild failure, it might suck sanity out of you, or it might suck life force out of you. It might start drawing physical damage, or it might draw you in and spit you out from a mirror in another room, but it might tell you that your character has changed, or these sorts of things. So it's quite a dynamic little game. The ones to really watch for are the omens. Let's see if I can find one for you. The omens, of course, have a raven marked on them because cool. The omens are sometimes a happening, sometimes a very cool item, and each of these has their own deck of cards that you draw from. Quite large cards, as you can see. The omen cards, you draw them and they will sometimes be a magical item. Very often it'll be an accursed dagger, or it might be a magical mirror or something, and these are often very important in the haunting section of the game. They've got powers that tie into different things and abilities that you might need later on. Sometimes they're a major happening, but whenever you draw an omen, you have to roll a number of those special dice equal to the number of omens that are currently in play. If you score a 5 or higher, the haunting has begun. So obviously your first 2 omens, you're never going to have a chance of having a haunting. After omen number 3, you're starting to get a bit risky. So it will happen eventually. However, your characters tend to go forth and tend to search the house looking for items, cool things, stuff that's useful. Your powers will go up if you do well. I have noticed that people have a tendency to spread out because they want to go into newly explored territory, because that's where they'll find cool stuff. Tactical hint, that can also be a bit of a trap, because when things go south, if you are really scattered, monsters and so on can pick you off one after another. Or if someone somehow turns into a traitor or drop stone dead and has equipment you need, they'll be on the far side of the house and you're going to have to get to them somehow to save your souls. So, spread out, but maybe not too far. Anyway, when someone triggers off one of these hauntings by making the haunt roll from their omens, the haunting begins. You take the card for the scenario you chose, and there is a different entry on it for what omen sparked the haunting. So if you've taken the Paranormal Investigators one, and it's the haunt comes from like the moldering skull, or from the accursed dagger, it will give you a page to turn to, and that's where we come to what actually makes this game move into the bloody clever. So we have 2 different books here. This one is for survivors, this one is for the traitor. Now, that little list of things that tell you what the number of the haunt is also tell you who is the traitor. Very often the traitor is the person who triggered the haunt, but it might not be. There are many different entries. Could be the last person to have entered a particular type of room, could be the person with the highest of a particular sort of characteristic, could be whoever has the most items if it's a greed thing. But whoever's the traitor, they read that numerical entry in the traitor's book. The other people read the survivor's book. There's a general introduction in this. So what happens is, let's say you have Haunt 15. I just played that one, so not much of a spoiler, but it will say, it will basically give you an intro as to what's happening in the haunt. You read that out aloud. Now, everybody then reads the book for themselves without really putting on other information. However, I will say we've had some games confusing because this traitor's book doesn't quite explain to you exactly what you're doing. For instance, the last one we played, it said that there's like vampires and so forth in the house, and it just gave character stats for the vampires as if they were a normal character, and it told you how far they moved and how they attacked, but it didn't tell you how they took damage. So I was playing with someone who hadn't bothered to really thoroughly read the survivor's book. The survivor's book tells them that you can't hurt a vampire except with some of the very specific magical weapons that you've found. Otherwise, you just can't touch them. You have to have the holy water, you have to have the blessed crossbow, you have to have this, blessed cross or something. Otherwise, you can't touch them. They, of course, didn't inform me of this, so we're playing these like kind of normal combats, and I was like, wow, these things are really weak. this isn't that impressive a haunt. Oh yeah, I guess I should have told you the other half of this. It's like, so I think it is worthwhile as the survivors if something is game critical like that. Like, you don't have to say, for instance, if it says as the survivors to win, you have to take the the glowing skull, and you have to get it somehow into the chapel where you have to like drive the iron stake through it on the and smash it. Like, you probably don't have to say that, but if your opponent is sort of staring at this wondering what's going on, it is worth explaining. Oh, no, you only get hurt under special circumstances. Don't worry. There's a reason why you haven't got a card for the monsters. As it turns out, monsters basically never fight in combat in the game in the regular way. Basically, it doesn't happen. It's always something special that takes the monsters out. So don't get confused if you play the way I did. There's victory conditions in each of these scenarios, and at the end of it, there is a little, if the monster wins, you read the victory paragraph from the monster book, a trader book, and if the good guys win, you read from this. So it is kind of cool because you don't quite know who's going to turn on who and who's going to end up as a bad guy, and so on. So, and again, so many different variant scenarios that come up. So it's a really, really good game. Now, this third edition, what's changed in the third edition? Well, as I said, the characters have changed. I also see all of the components have changed. The artwork is bolder and brighter. Now, the first edition game which I had was a bit snowed under with a plethora of very small fiddly counters. This current edition has used, I shall show you, much larger counters. You can see, I haven't punched all of these yet, but you can see they're quite large, they're not fiddly, and they've really trimmed it the hell down. I'm not joking, first edition must have had 100 different things. So it says, okay, you need the counter for the cat, the secret stair, and a rope. And you just got this mass of things that you punched out ages ago, and you're sorting through trying to find the jolly things. No, this is way better. So that is thing one. Hell on. Oh, peach tea, fantastic. Thing two is that determination of the haunt now uses that system that comes from the scenario card, which is way neater, I think. That went down the wrong way. And they have made the rules much clearer as regards movement and a few little niggles that turned up that we used to have to sort of house rule based on what was sensible. Now they've got proper examples and clarified them. So a clearer piece of rules writing in the third edition. The main thing, however, is I think they're better laid out so that in every case layout is telling you what's happening. Much clearer and easier to read, I think. So graphically, a better job has been done on this third edition game. There's not that many other changes, but they do have a list in here for those of you, if you played before, important changes. And yeah, they did change the haunt roll rules. It's now a little bit easier to get a haunt happening. Yeah, they've got a few extra terms in the game so that there is burying a card, as you have. It used to be that you have cards in a discard pile. They've also now got burying ones where you use something, but it goes back into the deck you can draw from, so that this thing is always in circulation somewhere, that sort of thing. There is also an It supplement for this. I'm not a huge fan of It. My household does extremely. My housemates, they're just obsessed with It. And the It thing has its own trader's book, its own survivor's book. It has its own characters, including, Monstrous Pennywise. it has its own monsters and obviously its own scenario cards. So it's a build on. It has its own house tiles and sewer tiles and these sorts of things. So I would say they are going to continue, hopefully, to bring out these sorts of little supplements. This is a game that just provides endless entertainment. It is very quick to set up. Essentially, you just have to really decide on what characters you want, and that's really easily done. There is not a ton of rules to read, and the new version in particular is very well referenced. It's very easy to figure out where you are, what you need to do. But get a character, lay down that entryway, passageway tile, take the 2 landing cards for the basement and the upper floors, and just put them down somewhere on a table. Make your big deck of the house tiles off to one side, separate the decks of items, omens and events. Pick a scenario and you're playing. And play is clear, consistent, it's entertaining. Different tiles represent different areas of the house. They all have different effects. Some have like I said, some have secret doors, some have terrible happenings actually written onto the tile. Some of them are cluttered or have dangerous floors, so they have different movement rules. It builds a very... The house is wonderfully silly. I do like it. You'll come down the open hall and then okay, well, I'll just open the door in the side of the front hall and the tile will say, good, ground floor, good, it's a graveyard. What? Come through the front door and, instead of, through here we've got the patio. Oh, that's very nice. We had the kitchen knocked through and that's good. And the living room's got a view of the graveyard. You have your own personal graveyard? Well, yes, we didn't want Granny to feel alone. So, yes, it is a wonderful Bela Lugosi haunted house feel. This is a game that I just think it's fantastic value for money because of that replayability. Even if you only ever chose the same scenario card, because there's like, what is there, 8 or 9 different omen cards, or a dozen omen cards, I think. It's going to be, quite a few games until you were going to be ending up repeating the same haunt. But that's not going to happen, particularly if you shuffle the scenario cards and pick one at random. Now you've got a dozen scenarios by a dozen different triggers. That's a lot of different scenarios to play, and some of these scenarios are hilarious. So in some of them, yes, the traitor is possessed by terrible demons and is trying to disable you guys one after another and drag you onto a sacrificial altar. Or it could be that there isn't a traitor. It might say, good, these different statues in different areas of the house have now animated and they're coming to get you. Normal weapons and guns and bombs and knives are going to ricochet off them. You're going to have to either lure them into the hole that lands into the basement, or you're going to have to find these spells or whatever that deactivate the statues. There was another one, I think it was Ouroboros, which is this 2-headed snake, which bursts out of this room and starts heading towards things, but it leaves snake body behind it. So what you're trying to do is get it to come after some of you, because it will home in on you, but it can't cross over its own body. So you're trying to get it to basically come to a dead end, and then that head can't move. And it can't double back on itself. So, there's some of them are cute little movement problems, but many of them come down to you are given problems that require you to move extensively around that board, find items and combine them with items and locations or something like that. This terrible thing has dragged your friend's soul in and now he's this horrible monster. You can kill the monster, or you can try and get to the mirror and somehow free his actual soul from that mirror and get it back into his body. All these sorts of things. So it's very imaginative and it's a hell of a lot of good fun. Thoroughly recommend this game. We've got every edition of it in the house. Like I said, first edition, fantastic, but fiddly counters and a little bit hazy on some minor bits of like movement. What happens if I'm you know, a lot of what ifs that weren't covered. Second edition was really kind of a reprint of first. Just, you know, it had sold well, so more money. This one's a redo, and it's somewhat cleaned up. I see that there are some new rooms. The graphics are often different, particularly the character graphics and particularly the page layouts for the rules, which I think are much, much clearer and communicate far better. So anyway, take a look at it. Snoots approves. We often get together and do a game. It's one of those great things that you can pull it out onto any empty table space and just start playing wherever you are. You know, if you're at a games club and people are late, it's not that long a game. You can have a whale time. Anyway, everybody, look after yourselves, particularly if you're in the LGBTQ and particularly trans communities in places like the UK and the USA, which are hellholes. This is what happens when empires die, folks. They start repressing minorities in a frenzy to seem like they're butch. Get together with your communities and start discussing how you can practically fight them. Really, live magnificently and fight the bastards. Really, fight the bastards. Anyway, cheers to everyone. Love you all. And hopefully I meet you around a games table somewhere. Okay, bye. He's turning it off.